Good evening, everybody. Hello. Hi, everyone. Well, I want to welcome everybody to this special talk. Thank you so much for taking time to connect and to be part of this. I wanted this to be really something that I wanted to share with all our friends from EPCC and also make this available because a lot of people are asking questions about the vaccine. All right, and as you know that Malaysia is rolling out the vaccine probably March, beginning of March, coming out end of February. So probably there is a greater desire and also inquisitive mind wants to know really what is this vaccine all about. So, well, I really trust that this session will really give you the necessary information, and especially if you're a pastor, leader, I'm sure that many of your members have been asking questions about the vaccine. So I think we have invited the right person to address this important topic. So first of all, welcome all the friends and pastors, leaders from, I know this is a group of pastors, leaders that I send out the invitation from all over Malaysia. We also have pastors, leaders from Sarawak as well as Sabah that are joining in. So thank you and welcome. Story, we could not accommodate everyone because we never anticipated that it will have such an overwhelming response. We had to reject 170 applicants because at the last minute we just ran out of space to allow everyone to come into the Zoom. But nevertheless, for those who have been rejected, this is what we have for you. You can go to the chat in this Zoom. Okay, go to the chat. There is a YouTube link that they can actually watch YouTube live at this very moment if they want. For those who are not able to watch it now, well, we will send you the recording and they can watch the recording on a later time, whichever that is easy and convenient for everybody. Okay, so recordings will be made available and will be sent to you all. Thank you. Now, so how do we facilitate and carry out this session will be after I introduce Pastor Philip Lin, then he will take over when he completes his presentation. And the next thing that will happen will be we will open the time for question and answer. So there are a few ways how you can ask the question. First of all, when you receive the confirmation registration, in your WhatsApp, you will see a Slido link in the confirmation registration. There's a Slido link. You can actually click that Slido link and you can post your questions there. And Pastor Rachel will later facilitate the Q&A session. All right. Now, the other way you can ask question is you can, of course, type your questions on the Zoom chat. Okay. So in that way, you can also place your questions there, and Pastor Rachel and our tech team will facilitate and will definitely make sure that your questions are addressed. Now, you are also able to see in the Slido, there are other questions that already been asked. If your questions are similar to what that has already been asked, then you just like the question, and then we know that it is similar question, and so it will be highlighted and you will get priority to be answered because, of course, we have several questions that are similar to that which you have in your mind. Okay, so those are the simple guidelines for us when it comes to the Q&A session. We're talking about Q&A. This is not a platform to ask questions like, Pastor, is this the vaccine? Is this the sign of the mark of the beast? That one, we will not answer you the question. We will just tell you, okay, read the Bible. Okay. Or, some people have questions like, is this the dress rehearsal for coronavirus? Is the dress rehearsal? Or is it the forerunner of the coming new world order? Guys, Friends, we won't answer questions like this. This forum is specifically to answer questions in regards to the vaccine, all right? So that we can keep our focus of our discussion really connected just to the vaccine alone. That in itself is a huge topic. So that's why we will not go the other all the other questions. Pastor Philip asked me to answer all those questions. I'll tell you, yeah, you read your Bible, sure got answers there, all right? We won't take the time to go into those questions. We can answer, but maybe not at this forum. All right, so those are the things that I want to highlight to your attention. So for those who just come in, we want to once again welcome all of you. Thank you so much for taking time and for connecting and being part of this forum. Okay, let me introduce to you our speaker. You all are here for one reason for sure. It's because of the credibility of our speaker, Pastor Dr. Philip Lin. And I don't think he needs any introduction to tell further about his involvement and his ministry and so on and so forth. But well, just for some of us who are new probably, I just make a quick introduction of Pastor Dr. Philip Lin. All right, Pastor Philip Lin, or Pastor Dr. Philip Lin, is the senior pastor of SIB Skyline, a very vibrant and fastest growing church in Kota Kinabalu, Sabah. And I tell you, they are truly a lighthouse in the city of Kota Kinabalu. Pastor Dr. Philip Lin is also an Oxford graduate and a medical doctor, and he is still a practicing doctor. So from Monday to Friday, he is a doctor, pastor, all right? Then from Saturday and Sunday, he is pastor, doctor. What's the difference? When he is doctor, pastor, when you see him, you definitely have to pay lah. But when you come to Saturday, Sunday, when he's pastor, doctor, when you see him, he's FOC. All right, so that's the difference. But he is passionate about preaching the word and raising up a strong generation and a strong body of believers. Pastor Philip has got 3 wonderful children, Francis, Andrew, and the youngest daughter, Sarah. You may have heard of her amazing testimony. She at one point had an accident and died, and the Lord resurrected her, raised her to life, and that was amazing testimony. I believe you have heard Pastor Philip shared. And the amazing thing is, Sarah just graduated, and now she's Dr. Sarah Lin now. So she's also a doctor following her dad's footsteps. And of course, Pastor Philip is married to the amazing lady, intercessor, Pastor Nancy, and they lead and provide amazing leadership to SIB Skyline. So we are honored and we are so blessed to have Pastor Dr. Philip Lin to share with us on this important topic called the efficacy of the vaccine for COVID-19. So in your own ways, you can welcome, let's welcome Pastor Dr. Philip Lin to share the session with us. Pastor Philip, over to you.
Thank you, Pastor Sam, for the very kind introduction. It's always good to see Pastor Sam and Susie. You know, even though we are separated by the seas and the land, I long to be in Penang, not just because of the food, but because of the many friends there. And wherever you are, scattered right across Malaysia, wherever you're listening from, God bless you. Just wish we could be with each and every one of you in the places where you are. But I hope tonight will be something that will be both informative as well as giving you a sense of perspective as to how this whole thing is probably going to pan out, this whole pandemic is going to pan out in the coming days. Okay, so, but before I do that, let me just allow me to share screen. I'll just want to do a quick 1-minute promo, if I may. And so I will just do that right now. Okay, there we go. I want to talk about very briefly 1-minute promo that as we prepare the church for the future, much as we're preparing ourselves for the future in the midst of the pandemic, Alpha Malaysia, Mrna, and World Vision are organizing Faith for the Future conference that's going to be held in March on the 13th and the 20th of March, both Saturday mornings from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's really helping us to prepare the church to engage the future generation, especially the emerging generation. And it'd be something really, really good for every one of us who's concerned about how the church is going to pan out in the future, whether we are doing enough today to engage the generations for tomorrow, whether the church will not just survive the pandemic, but survive the huge changes that are happening amongst our younger generation. If you're concerned about that, whether you're a leader or a pastor or somebody who is a trend reader, please can I encourage you to join and register for Faith for the Future 2.0, version 2.0, because the first one was held last year. It was a very, very good seminar and a very good conference. And so we have the people from Mrna coming in to give us a trend poll of what's happening throughout the world. And then Alpha Malaysia and World Vision will be talking about what's happening in Malaysia. And then with both millennials, senior pastors, and other people giving their views as to how we can prepare for the future. Today, I'm going to speak about the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines, what we should know, and how we can decide which vaccine is better. You know, this is one of the big sort of $64,000 question or $1 million question right now for many people. Just to give you a perspective of the COVID pandemic. Globally, about 105 million people are infected or have been infected with the COVID-19 virus. That represents 1.4% of the world's population. In Malaysia, about 232,000 people have been infected. That represents about 0.8% of our population. So we're not doing too badly compared to the world stage. Globally in the world, 2.3 million people have died. That's about 2.2% of those who have been infected have died. In Malaysia, 830 people up to yesterday have died. That's 0.4%. So as far as we're concerned, compared to the world stage, we are doing very well. We are only about 1/6 or 1/5 of what the figures are averaging out in the world. And that may have something to do with the fact that Southeast Asia and East Asia and Asia in general, we don't have a lot of people who are obese, for example. Obesity is definitely a big comorbidity for COVID deaths. So when we look at COVID deaths right across the world, Europe has it worst. Many of them are obese, many are old. Americas have it worse, especially North America. Asia has it best. I haven't got the data for Africa, so I can't compare that. But if you really want to be safe, it's better to be in Asia than to be in Europe or to be in America. Okay, so you're in the right part of the world if you're listening to this from somewhere in Asia. The culprit of all this is the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Okay, the SARS-CoV-2 virus is this is the culprit. This is what it looks like. Diagrammatically, this culprit looks like this. It's got a genetic strand called an RNA strand inside an envelope, a protein envelope, which is in yellow, the ring. And that RNA strand is the genetic material. We have DNA. Viruses can have either DNA or RNA. This particular bad boy has RNA, which is another form of genetic material. It is coated with a nucleocapsid protein, which is in orange, and rounded in yellow is a protein envelope, a ring, and then stuck in there are blue capsules, which are membrane glycoproteins. Basically, that means that it's got glucose molecules attached to these proteins. But the characteristic of the COVID-2 virus is the fact that it has got a spike protein. Now, the spike protein gives it its distinctive ability to penetrate cells. So what happens is that the virus goes to a cell receptor. This horizontal thing is a cell membrane. It goes to the cell receptor called an ACE2 receptor. It attaches to this receptor, and then it works its way through the membrane by fusion, and then it comes into the cell. And once it comes into the cell, the envelope opens, the protein envelope opens and releases this genetic material called RNA, ribonucleic acid, into the cell. And then the RNA then unwinds, and then it goes through a process where it begins to replicate. It begins to multiply. How it multiplies is that it takes over the cell machinery for replication of genetic material and starts to multiply. So point number 5, the RNA multiplies, then it takes over the cell's factory to use it to make proteins, okay? And then with the multiplied genetic material, which is the blue strand, and new protein, which is now the orange envelope, it inserts itself into that protein capsule, and then it becomes a full-blown virus, and then it exudes itself. This is how it works, okay? And then it multiplies itself, you know, as you do. And in so doing, it just releases more and more viruses that go and infect other cells. And then we have COVID. How does it transmit? Largely by air droplets, okay? Largely by air droplets. So when a person suffers from disease, it's sneezing, coughing a lot of droplets into the air. And that droplet, when somebody talks or sings or sneezes or coughs, can go up to 2 meters. And that's quite far away. Many of us are asking to socially distance 1 meter. But if you're wearing a mask with 1 meter social distance, that's probably adequate. But if there's no mask, it can go 2 meters and beyond. And some of these tiny droplets can hang on in the air for quite a while, sometimes for hours. So if a nearby person inhales that, then they have inhaled a load of the virus. And sometimes if some of the droplets settle down on a tabletop or some surface and you touch it and then you touch your face or your eyes or your nose or your mouth, then the virus can gain entry as well. But by far, the most common way of spreading is definitely droplets, okay, and in the air. The incubation period is anything from 5 to 14 days. When you start having it, you have a fever, dry cough, tiredness, aches and pains. These are the commonest. Other people have sore throats, headaches, loss of smell and taste, difficulty in breathing, okay? These are the early and the later symptoms. In Malaysia, we stage our COVID illnesses, okay? And we stage them from stage 1 to 5. This is for public health purposes. So we know which ones to hospitalize, which one to look after in intensive care, and which ones we can either allow them to quarantine at home or in a hotel or you know, in quarantine centers. Right now, all stage 1 and 2s are quarantined in quarantine centers, okay? So we don't allow people to quarantine at home anymore because it is no longer reliable. People break laws and rules all the time. Quarantine in hotels are similar. And so those with no symptoms or mild symptoms, they come to the quarantine center. Those with symptoms with pneumonia, proven on a chest x-ray, they need hospitalization and observation. Those with symptoms, pneumonia, and needing oxygen supplement, they need to go to a high dependency unit in the hospital for closer observation. Those who get to stage 5, stage 4 and stage 5 are quite potentially critical. Stage 5 is very critical. When you are critically ill with multi-organ involvement, you really need to be in ICU because the chances are you will need all kinds of support, including ventilation therapy. So these are the 5 stages. Based on these stages, the Malaysian government, on a public health measure, chooses to then decide how best to manage these various people. Looking at the stats in Malaysia, this is what it pans out. 58% of those who have got COVID in Malaysia are Malays. 24% are other nationality, especially migrants. They could be the Nepalis, Burmese, Rohingyas, all kinds of people from Bangladeshis, all kinds of people, other nationalities. Then 9% are the other ethnics, meaning that the other Bumiputras, probably from East Malaysia, and 7% are Chinese and 2% Indians. But you really need to compare it with the population demographics in Malaysia. So what does it look like? The worst group is really the other nationality. They have a 4-to-1 ratio in terms of getting COVID. That means they are 4 times more likely than their population demographic, the population percentage, to get COVID. Next comes the Malay, which is 1-to-1. Basically, the number of percentage of the Malay population in Malaysia makes them that much more likely to get the COVID. Okay, other ethnic groups, the Bumiputras of Sabah and Sarawak, it's 0.9 to 1. Okay, so they're a little bit better off. The Indians are 0.5 to 1. Okay, and the Chinese are 0.3 to 1. So in Malaysia, if you're an Indian or a Chinese, you are less likely to get COVID compared to the other races and other ethnic groups. That's what it shows right now. Let's look at a vaccine history, because now in the midst of all that's happening in the world, that's what we are talking about tonight, the vaccine, okay? We want to look at vaccine history. Now, so you understand how fast and what are the challenges in developing the COVID vaccine, I'd like to just tell you how normal vaccines develop, okay? But here in particular, how the COVID vaccine was developed first, and then tell you about the length of time normal vaccines would take to develop. So you know what a wonderful job has been done in development of vaccines and why there are certain concerns as well. Now, on December the 31st of 2019, Chinese officials announced the first cases of the unusual pneumonia in Wuhan. Actually, you know, those pneumonias have been breaking out as early as even late October. I was keeping an eye on it. By November of 2019, I knew something bad was happening in Wuhan already. I told all my patients not to go to Wuhan, not to go to China anymore, as early as November 2019. I knew something bad was happening there. But the Chinese kind of kept it under wraps and tried to control it themselves until they couldn't anymore. It was just bursting out at the seams. And the whole world was asking big questions. So on December the 31st, China announced this unusual pneumonia in Wuhan. Although it had been going on for at least probably 2 months before. On January the 11th, the Chinese, this is one of the biggest breakthroughs. You see the fact they announced the genetic code of the new coronavirus. That means how could they have announced it so quickly within 11 days from December the 31st? They had been working on it for at least 2 months before. So they sequenced the gene of the RNA gene of the virus. So within 11 days of announcing there was a new virus or new pneumonia, they were able to identify the agent, and then they gave the world the sequence. The genetic sequence is the breakthrough. With that genetic sequence, vaccine companies immediately went in, took the RNA or the genetic material, chop it up into bits, and then attach it to various ways to make a vaccine out of that. And these were the three companies that went in the fastest: Pfizer, Moderna, and Oxford. And they began phase 1 trials. What are phase 1 trials? Phase 1 trials are small trials with the vaccine, which they had developed within about 2-3 months to decide whether it is safe or not. So it's about 50 to 100 people. And then they found it was safe. And by July, August, they began phase 2 trials. Phase 2 trials is where they brought in 500 to a few thousand people. And they tested this question: is it not just safe, but is it effective? And also, is it safe at the same time? And when they find out that within that group of people, it is relatively safe and it shows potential of being effective, they did then phase 3 trials. Phase 3 trials are where they recruit large number of people, 20 to 40,000 people. And they ask this question: if it is effective, how effective is it? And how safe is it? Now they have the data with large numbers of people on the phase 3 trials. And they were able to do these trials very, very quickly. And by late December, Pfizer reported on the vaccine trials results. And that's incredible. By late December, November, they reported. The Oxford group reported at the end of December, and Moderna reported it in mid-January. You can see how fast it was. I mean, these three companies, they were the front runners. And when we look at vaccine history for the coronavirus vaccine, the COVID virus, it just took 9 months to get the vaccine out to the people. That's unheard of and unprecedented. There's never been a history in medical science that's ever taken such a short time for a vaccine to develop. January 11th, the sequence of the RNA of the SARS-CoV-2 virus was released. And then by March and April, phase 1 trial started. You see, normally before that, when a virus sequence is released, there's academic research. People research it for 2, 3, 4 years before they start thinking about doing a vaccine. Nobody did the academic research. They got the genetic material and immediately they started developing a vaccine and doing a phase 1 trial. The technology for developing the vaccine was already there from these companies beforehand. So they just took the genetic material, adapted it to the technology, and then started phase 1 trials. And we know before phase 1 trials were completed, they did phase 2. Before phase 2 trials were completed, they did phase 3. Normally, you have to wait phase 1, wait a while, examine the results, then do phase 2, then wait a while, look at the results, and do phase 3. This one, phase 1 was halfway, they went phase 2. Phase 2 was halfway, they did phase 3. So they combined the phases. And so all these things they did very, very quickly. And then while they were doing phase 2 or 3, they knew that the vaccine was probably quite going to be effective, and they're not quite sure how safe, but they know that it's probably going to be effective, probably quite safe. They started investing in companies, in factories. They built factories for phase 3 supply. Why? Because in phase 3, they needed 20, 40,000 people for the trials. So where are you going to get a vaccine? They built the factories even before they knew the vaccine was safe. And government gave them money for this. The US government gave lots of money to Pfizer and lots of money to Moderna. They started producing the vaccine very quickly, expanding the capacity so that they could do their trials. And so by the time the trials, phase 3 was finished, the factories were already had the capacity to churn out large amounts of vaccine. And so within a short space of time, approval was given and it was distributed. So just to let you know how clinical trial processes take place, okay? Phase 1, less than 100 people. Question, is it safe? Phase 2, 100 to 500 people. Is it effective and safe? Phase 3, 10 to 100,000 people. How effective and safe it is. All these things, it will take an average of 7 years normally. Anything from 5 to 15 years, but the average for a vaccine to come out, 7 years. 7 years, okay? Now we are into phase 4 because the vaccine has already been released. After it's been released, phase 4, we look at what the side effects, the safety, and how effective it is in the general population. This is phase 4. We are doing phase 4 now, right now. So how long did it take to develop similar vaccines? You look at MERS, SARS-CoV-1, there was no vaccine after 6 years. The Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, which is another coronavirus, like COVID. No vaccine after 6 years. Why? Middle East, and they had some problems developing the vaccine. But why didn't they develop it? Because after a while, the virus went away. So no money to be made, so no vaccine. The SARS-CoV-1 virus, which was a SARS virus that came on in the early part of the century, there was no vaccine up to today, after 17 years. Why? Because after 6 months, SARS left, no money to be made. Ebola vaccine took 15 years. Why took so long? No money to be made. Because only Africans get Ebola and they can't afford to pay for expensive vaccine. It takes about 15 years. Polio in the old technology took 60 years. SARS-CoV-2 took 9 months. So in the grand scheme of vaccines, you can see this was super fast. This is lightning speed for a vaccine. And the first vaccine that was approved was actually in the UK on December the 1st. And this was approved by Dr. June Rain, the CEO of the MHRA UK. That's Medical, Health Products and Regulatory Authorities UK. This is Dr. June Rain. She's my classmate. She's my friend. We were in university and in med school together. And I know June. She's a very, very careful woman. She's a very careful scientist. She's an excellent scientist and excellent clinician. So for June to suddenly release the vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine, and said it was safe and signed it, this was a shock to the world. She did it even before the Americans did. And Pfizer is an American company. So she was a very, very bold. She took a very bold step. So when I first heard it, I thought, this can't be June. It can't be true because she's a very careful woman. Why did she can't take such a big step in risk? I think it must be because there was so much political pressure because the UK was having the worst death rates in the world. At the moment, it still is the worst death rates in the world. It's actually in the UK. So they had no choice. They saw that the data was safe enough. They took a risk and they approved it. And then shortly after that, they approved the Oxford vaccine at the end of December. And then the United States approved Pfizer vaccine by the middle of December. And then the Moderna vaccine comes in, has just come in January, and it's been approved as well in both the UK as well as in United States. Although the Oxford Astrozeneca vaccine has not been approved in the United States yet. Up to now, they're just waiting for a little bit more data. So that you know that, that there are lots of vaccines. We hear only of certain vaccines because Malaysia is interested in certain vaccines. I'll come to those vaccines we're interested in. But there are many, many vaccines out there. And sooner or later, you will hear of some of them. At this point in time, there are 36 vaccines in phase 1, 25 vaccines in phase 2, and 20 vaccines in phase 3. You can see alone for that, that's 81 vaccines out there, still under trials and testing right now. So far, what has been approved are the 3 vaccines. That's by the European authorities, the Canadian and American authorities, and largely accepted by the world as kosher or halal, or really accepted, because the science behind it is good. These are the Pfizer, the Oxford AstraZeneca, and the Moderna vaccines. There are 4 vaccine trials that have been abandoned: Vaxart, Merck, and Imperial College London. Their vaccines didn't work, they abandoned them. So let's now just take a quick look at the vaccines. There are 3 vaccines for limited or use right now, which are approved. These are the 3 vaccines I mentioned. But look at this other thing. There are 10 other vaccines that are approved for use in various countries. China has approved some of their vaccines. Russia has approved some of their vaccines. Other countries, India has approved some of their vaccines. So these vaccines are not widely approved in the world yet. Other countries won't use them, but these countries have approved them and they're safe. China has approved at least 2 or 3 vaccines. Russia has approved 1. India has approved maybe 2 or 3. And there are at least 10 other vaccines other than the 3 vaccines I mentioned that have been used by the countries concerned, vaccinated millions of people with them, but not widely accepted in the world yet. Why is it important? Because Malaysia is buying some of these vaccines, and I will tell you about it in a short while. So far, what is the state of play with regards to the vaccination? Well, the total number of people that's been vaccinated up to now is an incredible, as of February the 7th, okay? Today is the 9th or 10th, is it? 10th. As of February the 7th, 135 million people have been vaccinated. That's, somebody will probably say, wow, that's a lot. But it only represents 1.8% of the population of the world. We've got a long, long way to go yet. Tell you, these are really super early days right now. These figures are according to the WHO. What is the Malaysian vaccine strategy in the midst of everything that's going on? Firstly, Malaysia is a very late comer. He's a real Johnny come lately. I don't know whether it's due to the cabinet or the prime minister or the medical authorities advising our government, but they're very slow, okay? It's almost like kampong pace. The vaccine strategy is that we're spending $504 million US for vaccines for 26.5 million people, which is 80% of the population. Why only 80? Because the remaining 20% are kids, and the vaccine has not been proven to be either effective or safe for kids. No trials have been done on kids or for pregnant women. So that part of the population is left out. So Malaysia is prepared to spend 2 billion ringgit, in excess of 2 billion ringgit for 80% of the population. What vaccines are we buying? We are buying the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. We're buying the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine direct from the UK via WHO. We're buying the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine through India, and it's called the Covishield vaccine, okay? We're buying the China's Sinovac vaccine called Coronavac. We're buying China's CanSino Biologics vaccine, CanSino vaccine. We're buying the Russian vaccine, the Sputnik 5, which is made by the Russian vaccine institute called the Gamaleya Institute. We are in talks at the moment with Moderna and Johnson & Johnson for future vaccines right now. But that's how we're going. So we have about 4 vaccines, okay, because both Oxford AstraZeneca from India and the UK are the same vaccines. So who gets the vaccine first? What's the strategy in Malaysia? Who gets the vaccine first? Well, nobody knows because the government actually hasn't announced it clearly. It's keeping it basically under wraps right now. But there's a lot of talk that the frontliners will get it first. The doctors, the nurses, the frontliners in the hospital. As a medical doctor, I have been approached by the Medical Association, Malaysian Medical Association. The government has approached them through and approached people like us to ask us whether we want the vaccine. And if we do, we register for the vaccine. So all the doctors in Malaysia have had an opportunity to register for the vaccine in the last couple of weeks. So it looks as though we might be the first one to be offered the vaccine in Malaysia. But there's a rumor going on that the politicians will get it first. So who will get it first? We're not quite sure. Somebody said that, well, if the politicians get it first, no politicians actually get it first in other countries, other than just the prime minister, just to show that it's safe. But, like in Britain, the politicians don't get it first. But in Malaysia, maybe the politicians might get it first. And if they get it first, it's a good thing either way. If it works and they are the guinea pigs and it works, well, we know that the vaccine is safe and that's good for the country. If it doesn't work and they all conk out, well, that's also good for the country, somebody said. So, either way, they think that the politicians should get it first. Okay. But I think the frontliners and the doctors and the medical staff, both hospital staff as well as private doctors, we will probably be amongst the first to get it. Okay, so far so good. That gives you a big picture of what the vaccine is, what the situation in the country, how we developed the vaccine in such a short space of time. It is a huge triumph for capitalist medical technology. The driving factor for this is definitely not just public health and global health, which is fantastic, but also there's money to be made because the shares of all these companies that come out have actually skyrocketed into the stratosphere. If you bought Pfizer shares, you bought BioNTech shares, or you probably make quite a lot of money. So it's not just the fact that they are concerned about global health, but there's money to be made. So this is a real amazing triumph of capitalist medical technology coming together, and with the concurrence and the help of the government, many of the regulations, which would take sometimes years to pass, are actually expedited for them. So, that's how we get the vaccine so fast. So let me talk about the vaccines that matter to us. I don't have time to talk about all the vaccines, because as you can see, there are 80 over vaccines. There's no time, and I don't know about all these vaccines anyway. I'll talk about the vaccines that concern us in Malaysia. Okay, the 4 vaccines that concern us in Malaysia. Firstly, the Pfizer vaccine, the first of the vaccines. What are the pros and cons? The pro is that the Pfizer vaccine has been approved in the UK, the US, and the EU. So normally this is taken like the gold standard. If the UK authorities or the US FDA approves it, or the European health authorities approve it, that's the gold standard. That means it's safe. Pfizer says that after 2 doses, the vaccine is safe and effective up to 94% effectiveness. That means if you take the vaccine and you have 2 doses, it will reduce your chance of getting COVID by 94%. Okay. It has relatively few side effects. I'll talk about the side effects later. Many people have actually been very alerted about, especially some of the Pfizer side effects. But you must understand that you must see in the big picture of how many people have been vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine, which is millions right now. Many of the side effects is mild reaction lasting 2 days. About 30 million people have had at least 1 shot of the Pfizer vaccine up to now. And I think that's a conservative figure. At least 30 million people or more have had the first shot of the Pfizer vaccine. Now, after the first dose, just the first dose alone of the Pfizer vaccine will give you about 51% protection. After the second dose, it will give you 94% protection. Okay. What are the cons? Well, excuse me. The Pfizer vaccine is actually very expensive. It's amongst the most expensive vaccines. It's $20 US per dose. That's almost about 85 ringgit per dose. It needs very cold conditions for transport. That's -70 degrees for transport and storage. So you can see that unless you preserve the cold chain very well in transport, the vaccine can be rendered very useless if you actually break the cold chain. And that's one of the things in Malaysia, whether when we transport a vaccine, let's say from KL to Penang or KL to Kota Kinabalu, will the cold chain be preserved? Because if it has a break of the cold chain for an hour or two, then the vaccine is useless. mRNA technology is new. So Pfizer and Moderna are using mRNA technology, messenger RNA technology. This is new. It's never been used in vaccine before. Okay, so that's new technology. Is it safe? Well, up to now, it seems to be safe, but what about the long term? Well, we don't know because it's never been used in vaccine before. The solvent that's used to hold the vaccine, the water, as it were, the solvent is a substance called polyethylene glycol, or PEG. Yeah. Now, polyethylene glycol actually induces antibody formation in about 70% of people. Sorry, what's that?
Crackling sound. Okay. You're touching.
About 70%, never before. So it uses polyethylene glycol, and it's an allergic fatal anaphylaxis. Okay, this can give rise to allergies, and the allergies can be fatal. So that's why some of the reactions have taken place. Longer term side effects, more than 9 months, are unknown with mRNA technology. There are already a few suspicious deaths and some severe reactions for the Pfizer vaccine. What about the pros and cons of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine? So that was a Pfizer. What about the pros and cons of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine? Well, the pros is that it's been approved by the UK and EU, not yet by the US. It is less effective than the Pfizer vaccine. It's 70% effective after 2 doses. It's very strange, the Oxford vaccine. If you give the second dose, if you give the first dose as a half dose, you get 90% effectiveness. If you give the first dose as a full dose and the second dose as a full dose, you only get 60% effectiveness. If you start with half dose and then followed by full dose, you get 90% effectiveness. But you average it out, it's about 70% effective. The good thing about this vaccine is that it can be transported and stored at 2 to 8 degrees centigrade, which is a normal kind of vaccine storage. You can put it in your fridge. It is established technology. It's using a chimpanzee adenovirus vector. In other words, it's using a chimpanzee virus to take the COVID genetic material into the cells. So it's using that virus from a chimpanzee. Don't worry, if you take the Oxford vaccine, you won't turn into a monkey, okay? I guess some of you may be worried about that. Approximately 10 million people have at least had 1 shot of the vaccine, mostly in the UK right now. Although India has had a large number of doses as well, because they have manufactured their own vaccine there. It gives 76% protection after the first dose, 21 days after the first dose, which is very good, which is even better than the Pfizer ones in terms of first dose protection. But after 2 doses, it just drops down to, it just goes up to 90% at maximum. It is inexpensive. It's only $4 per dose. Why is it so inexpensive? The reason why it's relatively inexpensive is because when Oxford developed that technology, they wanted to give the vaccine to the whole world. They were very, very noble. They don't want to give it to an American company or some company that can make money. They wanted to give the vaccine to the whole world. And so they eventually teamed up with this company called Astrozeneca, which is a British European company. And AstraZeneca agreed that they would sell the vaccine, develop the vaccine and sell it at cost for 1 billion doses. Listen to this, 1,000 million doses. They would develop it and sell it at cost before they develop, before they start hiking the price. So that was a very noble thing that Oxford did. It was very good. That's what they did. But we just wish that the vaccine would have been a little bit more effective than the Pfizer vaccine. These are the cons. These are the things that are not that great about the Oxford vaccine. Firstly, it's less effective versus the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine. Secondly, there is not enough of data on protection for the elderly. See, the trials that they did was on people up to 65 years old mostly. So those above 65, you don't have enough data from the Oxford vaccine. And now, just 2 days ago, we found out that it may not protect against a South African mutant strain of the vaccine, which is now invading the world. Okay, it is now rampant in South Africa. It's made an appearance in the UK and even in Australia, and it's made an appearance in Malaysia. Guess where? Sabah. And now, almost certainly, if it's made an appearance in Sabah, it is already in West Malaysia, a South African mutant strain. So, so just to let you know that this is a strain that we need to think about in the coming days. I'll say a little bit more about it. The third vaccine that Malaysia is considering is China's Sinovac vaccine. The pros and cons. The pros are China has approved it. It has millions and millions of doses have been used in Indonesia. Jokowi used the Sinovac vaccine. Okay, President Jokowi. United Arab Emirates, Brazil, all these other countries have used the vaccine. It is found to be about 50 to 91% effective after 2 doses. Why the wide range of effectiveness? It is because of the data collection and the way the trials were done. Somehow there was a discrepancy in the way the Brazilians did it when the trials were done in Brazil, and the way it was done and the data was collected when it was done in the Middle East. So right now, that's the best data we've got. It is somewhere between 50 to 91% effective. Good thing about it is that it can be transported and stored at 2 to 8 degrees, can be stored in your fridge. So the cold chain is not as sensitive as the Pfizer cold chain. What is the technology? It's inactivated virus particles. Inactivated virus particles are safe, established technology. Many of you have received your childhood vaccination, all that. Many of those vaccinations are with inactivated virus particles. You know, this is very safe technology. These inactivated virus particles are dead virus particles. So there's very safe technology here. There's no question about the safety about it. Approximately 300 million doses have been sold, mostly to the developing world. That's a pros. It's relatively inexpensive. Like most things that come from China, it's US $5 a dose. What are the downsides? The downsides are open scientific data is lacking in peer-reviewed journals, in publications. It's a highly variable results in different countries. So we don't know what that means, you know. Why is this less effective in Brazil? Is it the way the trial was done, or the collection of data, and more effective in some other countries? So some phase 3 trials are still going on right now. So it's not, they got data, but not enough data. That's the Sinovac vaccine. China has produced another vaccine called the CanSino vaccine. I don't know why the Malaysian government is interested in buying this, because this vaccine is not even in the phase 3 trial result stage. I don't know why. It's called the CanSino vaccine because China and Canada were meant to develop this vaccine together until China arrested, this Huawei kind of a technology, and they had a fallout with trade and all kinds of things. And then the whole of this development of these vaccines really slowed down rapidly. So to all intents and purposes, it's called a CanSino, which is a Canadian Sino vaccine, but it's China that's developing it on its own now. Canada is not involved, really. The upside of it is that it's established technology. It uses an adenovirus vector, like the Oxford vaccine, which uses a chimpanzee adenovirus vector. It can be transported and stored at fridge temperature again. The good thing about this is just one shot. And that's what they're hoping to get, just one shot. And therefore, a one-shot thing will make it so much more effective in immunization. But we still lack the data, okay? Right now, the vaccine has been used in Chinese armed forces. The military have had, I think, a couple of million doses. They had no choice. The Chinese government just used them as guinea pigs to find out how safe they were, how effective. So far, so good. Phase 3 trials are going on in several countries. Now, you can tell you the Malaysian government is interested in this vaccine. I don't know why. A vaccine that's only been used in Chinese armed forces is not good news for us, okay? But so I just want to say, we wait and see what this actually means for us. There are no results on effectiveness thus far. And the final vaccine is the Russia Sputnik 5 vaccine, Sputnik We Vaccine, okay? And the upside of it is that it's been approved by Russia. Well, if you trust Russia, then that's good. If you don't trust, then you want to wait for approval from, say, the EU. They're waiting for approval in EU, but many third world countries which cannot afford the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccines are going to Russia. For example, the European Union is, you know why they're applying for EU approval? Because the European Union is very far behind in its vaccine. It was, it couldn't get its whole, because Americans have got hold of Pfizer and Moderna. Britain has got hold of its Astrozenica Oxford vaccine. So the European Union doesn't have any vaccine. They're a bit slow to order the vaccines. Why is it? Because all those countries couldn't agree which is the best vaccine, how much to order, and so on. So by the time they made up their minds, they were really at the back of the queue, and the vaccines are very slow in coming. And the European Union member states people are getting very upset with their leaders. So the leaders are turning to Russia now for the vaccine. For the vaccine to be used, it needs EU approval. And so for the Russians, it's a winner. If the EU approves it and use it, then it means that they are kosher. Again, it uses established technology. Adenovirus can be used in fridge. It's 92% effective. That's what the Russians say. They have published it in peer-reviewed journals. It's 92% effective. Phase 3 data has just been published and is being studied. The vaccine appears safe and effective. In other words, this has now come out into the public domain in peer-reviewed journals. It appears that the Russian vaccine is what it says it is effective, and it appears to be safe. But other trials are ongoing, the phase 3 trials. It's moderate in terms of its pricing, about $10 per dose. But there's one unanswered question for all COVID vaccines. And this is this: all COVID vaccines run this potential danger, and this is something to do with the coronavirus itself, okay? There's a condition called antibody-dependent enhancement, which may occur in future exposure to the virus after vaccination and make the COVID infection worse. What this means is this: what is AED? ADE actually is antibody-dependent enhancement. What does it mean? It means that when you vaccinate somebody, besides the COVID antibodies that are appearing, there are other antibodies appearing as well in response to your vaccine. You raise other new antibodies that don't protect against virus. They just happen to be a byproduct of the vaccination, but they are not the COVID vaccine, neutralizing antibodies. So besides, when you inject somebody with a vaccine, they raise the COVID vaccine antibodies that kills off the COVID virus, but there are other antibodies that are often raised in the body as well. These antibodies, they sit around, they do nothing. But if you get exposed to the COVID vaccine in the future, in some cases, it may suddenly make the COVID, make the viral infection worse. This is called antibody-dependent enhancement. It is seen in certain conditions called in dengue, SARS-CoV-1, the original SARS, and MERS, which is another coronavirus, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. They're seen in them. So the question is, will it be seen in the COVID vaccine? We don't know, because we are only just beginning to vaccinate people. But so far, so good. But really, we will only be able to tell maybe another 3 months or 6 months down the road, because many of these people who are now vaccinated will now be exposed to the virus again. If they pick up the virus, let's say, will it suddenly result in an ADE, antibody-dependent enhancement? In other words, the COVID they get now is worse than the original COVID. This is a theoretical possibility. Everybody is aware of it, but there's no choice. We need to go on with the vaccination. But it is something that only the future will tell us. But so far, so good. There is no reports of ADE appearing this far, but it's early days yet. Okay, it's early days. We need these vaccinated people in large numbers to be exposed to the virus in the future to know whether there is an ADE phenomenon. What are the side effects of the vaccine? The widely reported ones are those associated with Pfizer, the Oxford, AstraZeneca, and the Moderna vaccine. So when I talk about side effects, these are the vaccine side effects that we know best. Painful injection sites, redness, swelling, fever, chills, lethargy, aches and pains, headaches, and so on. These are the common reactions. You get a vaccination, you suddenly feel tired, you feel no pain in the injection site, a bit of redness, you get a bit of chills and fevers, you get headaches, you get some nausea or vomiting. that sort of thing. What are the rare reactions from this particular vaccine, from the vaccines, especially Pfizer's? You can get anaphylaxis, which is an allergic shock, which is life-threatening. How often that it happens? It happens in 11 in 1 million people, which is 0.0011%. It happens. And these potentially can kill if you do not have emergency standby within minutes. That's why after people are vaccinated these days, for example, the Singapore government insists that every person who's vaccinated must hang around the clinic or the hospital for in the room for at least the next half hour before they can go, because the allergic anaphylactic reactions take place within the first 5 minutes. There have been reports of Bell's palsy, which is a facial palsy, or myelitis of the spinal cord with paralysis. This has happened, okay? But these can happen with some of the vaccines, other vaccines as well. There's a rare blood disorder reaction in a physician or a gynecologist in Florida who died after the vaccine. We don't know whether this is a one-off phenomenon or is it likely to appear in many other people. And there are unknown causes of death in 23 Norwegian old folks home people who are vaccinated, who are above 80 years old, okay? What was the cause of death? Almost certainly, I believe they were related to the vaccine. I believe they were related to the vaccine. But the Norwegian government says probably not. Other people, WHO says maybe, maybe not. The whole idea is they feel that, you know what, they don't want to scare people, because if people get scared taking the vaccine, then the whole area of trying to stem out COVID is not going to take place. If let's say 30% of the people do not take the vaccine, then we're in big trouble in every nation, okay? So these are some of the rare reactions that can happen. But you must understand that these are rare. These are very rare. And for example, the 23 Norwegians that died, they were more than 80 years old. And they were all very, very sickly anyway. They were all very sickly. And they died because of the vaccine. So, I mean, just avoid being vaccinated if you're very old and sickly. That's all that there is, you know. So the side effects are there. The potential of even death is there, but it's very, very uncommon. So the summary of the types of vaccines that we have is this. If you look at the left-hand corner, RNA vaccine will be Pfizer and Mrna vaccines. These are the only two RNA vaccines. This is brand new technology. We do not know the long-term side effects. The viral vector vaccines, which use a virus to bring the genetic material of the COVID genetic material in, is Oxford Astrozeneca, Ken Sinobiologics, and the Russian vaccine. Whole virus vaccine are Sinovac's vaccine, okay? And then the protein subunit vaccine are vaccines like Novavax, which is the new vaccine that's coming up. So what's various countries doing in terms of the vaccination? Well, just to let you know that the one country that has vaccinated more than 60% of its population is Israel. Israel is way ahead and is using purely the Pfizer vaccine, pure Pfizer. Why is that? Pfizer is shipping to Israel and selling Israel at a relatively cheap rate on this condition, that Pfizer has the rights to all the data in Israel from the vaccination. So if you want to know how safe Pfizer vaccine is, look at what's happening in Israel. Look and follow Israel until February, March, April, follow. And you will know how safe the Pfizer vaccine is, because they're way ahead of everybody else right now. I believe that sometime by March, Israel would have vaccinated everyone at least one dose, Now, second dose of vaccine is already beginning in Israel. So they're leading the world right now in vaccinations. Just a final word about a couple of new vaccines that's just come out, which is making the news. Novavax vaccine has come out. As you know, Novavax is a subunit protein vaccine from the coronavirus. It's like the hepatitis B vaccine. Novavax is safe because it's like a hepatitis B vaccine. It's just that subunit protein material from the virus. 2 shots, 89% effective. But we've just found that Novavax, however, when it meets the South African mutant of the virus, it is only 60% effective. Johnson & Johnson has also just come out. It's 66% effective, but when it meets the South African mutant, it is only 57% effective. Okay, these are the 2 new vaccines. Both are waiting approval from the American FDA right now. So the new SARS-CoV-2 variants are the South African variant, the Brazilian variant, and the UK variant. The big bad boy of all this is the South African variant. That is quite frightening. The problem of the mutant strains right now is that they're more easily transmissible, much more rapidly. More people will get it in a short space of time. The severity of disease, thankfully and mercifully, is the same. But here's the big problem. It is partially resistant to vaccines. In fact, the South African mutant has just been reported 2 days ago to be resistant to the Oxford Astrozenica vaccine for mild, moderate disease. In other words, the Oxford Astrozeneca vaccine will not protect you against mild, moderate South African COVID, mutant COVID. Now that was devastating for the Oxford AZ vaccine right now. And Australia has ordered a huge amounts of the Oxford AZ vaccine. They are in a bind right now as to decide whether they want to vaccinate their population right now with the Oxford vaccine, because they are sure that the South African mutant is already in Australia. Okay, the South African mutant vaccine reduces the effectiveness of Novavax as well as the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which I mentioned just now. Okay, so the mutant strains are an emerging threat to global vaccination strategy. I think it will cause a revision as to the type of vaccines recommended, and a revision to the vaccine regimen in 2021, 2022 will probably be required. I think every country now is just scratching their head and putting their heads in their hands and just thinking, how can we go forward? What else can we do? Because with our new vaccines now, they are proving to be less effective than we thought. Do we need to give 3 doses instead of 2? Do we need to have new vaccines that cater for the new emerging strains? We don't know. Okay. The question now everyone will ask is, should we vaccinate? My answer is yes. Why? Well, yes, firstly, I would say let the frontliners and those who are most exposed vaccinate. So for me as a doctor, if you ask me, should I vaccinate? I think I'm at higher risk than others. So my answer is probably yes, I would vaccinate. Supposing you are living in a very safe place like Singapore and there's very low incidence and you're not a frontliner, would you vaccinate? The answer is yes, but probably slightly later. So the answer is yes, but it can be an immediate yes or a conditional yes or yes, wait. But I would suggest that for the sake of the country's public health, we don't wait too long, because if we don't achieve that 80% herd immunity, we can't lift SOPs. Okay, so that's the whole idea why government wants everybody to vaccinate. But the population needs to be convinced that it is safe first. Okay, here's the reason why I would say yes. Firstly, because no one who has been vaccinated has died of COVID yet. This is a fact. Over 100 million people, no one who has been vaccinated has died of COVID. That tells you a lot of things about the vaccine. It is really powerful. It is very effective. It may not stop you from getting the COVID disease, but when you get it, it's mild. Okay, so when you get it, it's mild. Even though it doesn't stop you from getting COVID, when you get it, it's mild. It doesn't kill you. So up to now, nobody who's been vaccinated has died of COVID. They may have died of 1 or 2 other side effects, but they have not died of COVID. Though a very minuscule, tiny fraction of those vaccinated have died shortly after vaccination. Whether it's cause-related is not officially clear yet, okay? But I believe some are definitely a lethal reaction to the virus. But they are very, very small in numbers. But here's the big thing, that no one who has been vaccinated has died of COVID yet. Now that is a very, very big statement to make, okay? So this is where I want to stop, because there are other options for staying safe with regards to other kind of protective measures we can take. But because we're talking about vaccine right now, I'll open this time for questions and answers. And if we want to talk about other things, about supplements or other things like that, but if it's relevant, then I will talk about it, okay? But right now, I'm keeping the talk primarily to vaccine. So I'll stop share at this point, and I'll hand it back to the moderator, and I'll field questions wherever they may come from.
All right, thank you, Pastor Philip. We actually have got a lot of questions. So for those that are able to view the Slido link, while we are asking the questions, you can also click like, so that we can have the top questions that you want the question to be answered at the priority list. Okay, so Pastor Philip, the first question will be, will the vaccine alter our RNA?
No, the vaccine will not alter your genetic material. This is kind of fake news that's been going out and making the rounds, okay? You know, the RNA, we don't, the RNA from that's incorporated from the virus into the vaccine, the moment that RNA has been used up by the cell to generate the proteins, you know, to work, the RNA is destroyed, okay? It is never incorporated in your genetic material. It's a fake news. It doesn't change your genetics at all.
Okay, the next question. COVID-19 is 0.4, COVID-19 mortality is 0.4%. Mortality rate for other diseases like heart diseases, 15%, pneumonia, 11.8%, even car accidents, 3.7%. Why force vaccination?
You know what? You're absolutely right when you talk in terms like that. I guess the thing about it is that we are fearful of the unseen. You know, heart disease, you can actually do something about it, and it takes a longer time, you know, but you can do something about it. Car accidents, you can do something about it. Make sure you put on a seatbelt, you know, observe the traffic laws and all that, you can do something. But COVID, it's unseen. So the fear factor is huge. It's very huge. And the second thing about it is that not only is the fear factor huge, but it actually, because the fear factor is there and it's unseen, it locks down the economy. It just wipes out the economy. And this is the second reason why it's very emotional and very emotive issue. And secondly, it's also a very commercial, fiscal issue, economy issue for the country. And these two alone make it absolutely vital that we come up with a solution soon. I'm sure, you know, this guy who asked the question, I'm sure you don't like to be in perpetual lockdown, right? You can wait another 5 years for herd immunity to develop, but the country would probably not exist anymore. There'll be riots breaking out, you know, country economy will have sunk to zero. And, you know, then that would be, yeah, that's the reason why. It's a very simple thing, yeah. So it's not, you're not comparing apples and apples, you're comparing apples and oranges.
Okay, thank you, Pastor. Another question. We have observed unfortunate fertility in Norway and in Brazil after taking the vaccine. Did you hear any studies that unpack these events? Okay,
there is absolutely no proof that the vaccine actually will lead to infertility. There's a thing right now that there is a part of the protein unit in the spike protein, yeah, that resembles one of the protein unit in the reproductive cells of the females, and therefore, if you make a vaccine against the spike protein of the coronavirus, there is a thought that you can have a cross reaction, and this vaccine will generate antibodies towards the coronavirus, but also some of the antibodies will attack the reproductive system of the female. All the reports are anecdotal. There's no causal relationship at the moment, and there's nothing to prove it right now. Okay, there's absolutely nothing. You can think about it that if this was absolutely true and there was clear evidence that that's the case, theoretically there may be some cause for people to think along those lines, but in practice this has not worked out. But having said that, all I want to say is that, you know, some of these longer term side effects, I honestly have to tell you, I really don't know, simply because this is a new vaccine. I don't think anybody knows about this, but I'm not sure what kind of price we're prepared to pay for vaccination. But I think when people look at the fact that their loved ones are dying, that you cannot get on with normal life, that the economy is tanking, and all these other things, and they cannot connect with people and do it, I think people are prepared to actually pay the price. And if there is a certain amount of affecting of some of these areas, then we'll see what the future holds and see whether we can work it out. You know, I think that's the way it's going right now. And besides, we have a lot of other alternatives in terms of vaccines. So what has a theoretical possibility with one vaccine may not be a theoretical possibility with another vaccine affecting this. That's all I can give. it's not clear. Even with the Brazilian case, it's not clear.
Okay. Pastor, are we given a choice by the government to choose which vaccine to take?
You know Malaysia lah, huh? So in Malaysia, choice is not something that we are well known for in this country. So I would like to think that we have, but I have no idea. I would like to think that choice will be given. But if they're going to inject the frontliners first and the first group of people, I think the earliest vaccine that will be supplied to us first will be the Pfizer vaccine, because that's the one we ordered earliest. So its chances are the first batch will probably get the Pfizer vaccines. As to the later ones, I have no idea. I have no idea.
Okay, Pastor, if you are given a choice, which vaccine would you take?
You know what? Being an Oxford man, I would have chosen the Oxford vaccine. Yeah. And I chose the Oxford vaccine simply because, not just because I want to support my alma mater, but because I like their nobility when they didn't want to make money out of this, and they partnered with a company that was prepared to manufacture 1 billion doses of vaccine and give it to the world at cost. I thought it was fantastic. I would use it. And secondly, because the technology is a proven technology, it's safe. I know it doesn't sound good because it's chimpanzee virus, but it's safe. It's a proven technology. But with the South African mutant strain coming in, I'm having some second thoughts. And I only got that news 48 hours ago. Because if you think about the way vaccination is going, eventually the South African mutant strain will be the prevalent strain. Think about it right now. It will emerge as the prevalent strain unless we're able to lock down our COVID very quickly in the next 6 months across the world. If you can lock down the COVID and everybody gets vaccinated very quickly, then the pool for the South African strain to emerge will be very small, and it may not. But if we don't, I have a feeling the South African strain will be the emerging strain. That will be the bad boy, the big bully that will emerge out of this with the South African strain. I think that's something really I'm really concerned about, because it's been shown in South Africa, just the studies that came out 2 days ago, it doesn't protect against even mild or moderate COVID. It's not proven whether it protects against serious COVID, but it doesn't protect against mild or moderate COVID. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm having second thoughts right now. So, Pastor Rachel, you asked me 3 days ago, I was very sure. Now I'm thinking, okay.
Okay, so will you be writing like a website, then we can like connect and then find out, what will your choices be? Then we can send the link to others. I'm just kidding, Pastor.
Okay. Come to the Skyline website. I might put something down there once in a while. Okay.
Okay. Okay, Pastor, is there a higher risk that people of chronic disease like high blood, cholesterol, sugar may get a side effect compared to normal people?
More side effects compared to normal people? No, it doesn't seem to be. That doesn't seem to be the problem. Okay, that doesn't seem to be. Obviously, if you have high blood pressure, diabetes, and so on, and obesity and so on, then you are at a great chance of catching serious COVID and dying from COVID. But in terms of the vaccine, I don't think that has been looked at closely as to whether the vaccine is less effective in people who have these conditions. I don't think there's data on that right now. Okay. And I don't think there is data as to whether there are more side effects and reactions in these people.
Okay, we have one medical question. Pastor Philip, Dr. Carrie Mullis, who invented the RT, the PCR test, said the test cannot be used to diagnose diseases. Why then is it being used worldwide? Okay,
if you really want to be a purist, you have to use the Sanger sequencing system to actually confirm COVID. But that is a very laborious way. It's a very expensive way, and I would tell you, we would never have got to where we are right now. I think there will be some level of PCRs that are either false positives. I agree with that, and sometimes the PCR might miss, and I agree with that. That's not. But really, primarily, we are talking about trials that involve tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. So I think speed is the essence. time is the essence. If we miss out those few, and I know that there may be quite a few, but is it significant enough to make a difference to the trial data that emerges from that? I don't think so. I don't think that invalidates the trial data overall. As a purist, she's absolutely right in saying that. Yeah, and I would agree with her. But you know, I mean, it's a pandemic. We're not dealing with just a trickle of infections sporadically here and there, and therefore speed is really the essence. So that's the thinking behind it.
Okay. Is it safe for people with allergy to certain medication to receive COVID-19 vaccines?
That is an unknown question, answer to that question. It's a very good one. And so I would say this to people: if you have a lot of allergies, you know, every time you get a drug, every time you have seafood, every time you take a tablet or something, new tablet from doctor, new antibody, you get all these allergies. Then I would say to you, just hold on for a while, see if there's any safer vaccine coming on. And if there is none, and you need to take the vaccine, and you choose to take the vaccine, then make sure this is made known to the doctors, and that you stay after the vaccination. Make sure the doctor has all these facilities. You know, better to take it in a hospital. Some clinics they don't have facilities really for immediate resuscitation and emergencies. You know, so taking a vaccine in a place where there are good facilities, like an emergency room of hospital or something like that. Doctors are there, all the drugs are necessary, just in case you have a bad reaction to the vaccine, and some of which can be life-threatening. In Singapore at the moment, what they're advocating is that all those with allergies, they tell them to wait. Singapore government is very smart because they don't want bad publicity. Because if you get bad publicity, everybody will stay away. Because about 39% of Singaporeans do not want the vaccine immediately right now. So they got work to do. So they do not want any adverse reaction. So in Singapore, if you got any allergic reactions or you are prone to allergies, then just stay away for the time being, is what they do. But eventually, if you do take it, make sure it's in a hospital or with a good facility and a good setup.
Okay. All right, Pastor, is it safe for cancer patients who are on long-term targeted chemotherapy to have this vaccine administered?
As far as I know, yes. I'm speaking generically. Okay, obviously your oncologist needs to tell you whether in that particular cycle of the chemotherapy, it's a good time to take the vaccine. Okay, generically, yes, but you may have to choose the point of the cycle of the chemotherapy because your immune system may be so depressed it may not be able to respond to the vaccine. So you have to choose it. So take advice from an oncologist, but generically, yes. And there may be 1 or 2 types of cancers where you have to be a lot more careful.
Okay. Pastor, what about the categories of pregnant women, you know, or those mothers that are breastfeeding? They just want to hear from you.
Yeah. That's a hot potato. Nobody wants to touch it. It's so emotional. Nobody wants to touch it. No government wants to touch it. No health regulator wants to touch it. No doctor wants to touch it right now. So the present advice is, okay, if you're pregnant, don't get vaccinated. So, okay, does that mean pregnant people are more exposed and more vulnerable? Answer, unfortunately, is probably yes, but we don't know for sure, but probably yes. So is that fair? Probably not. But, well, we don't have data on pregnant women. Nobody's going to do the trials because of the unborn baby. Nobody will dare do the trials. But right now, what's happening is I hear that because, you know, there must be millions of pregnant women, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of pregnant women right now at any point in time, right? They've decided to take the bull by the horns and to do the trials. So there are limited trials taking place now, with consent of the pregnant women, you know, so that, you know, there's no indemnity, you know, and all that kind of things, so that they allow themselves to be vaccinated. And so we will see whether these limited trials give us some indication. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Pastor, Israel seems to have great success on vaccine delivery by mixing both dose 1 and dose 2. What can we learn from Israel?
What can we learn from Israel? Oh, well, you know what? They got a very, very efficient, tightly controlled government right now. And everything, you know, nothing escapes their notice. You know, their defense is good, their education is good, their security is good. You know, everything is good there. So what can we learn from them? A lot of things. A lot of things. And I don't know. I think they're such a pragmatic race of people. You know what? You couldn't do what Israel did, for example, if I do it in America. If you suddenly said to the Pfizer, you know what? We make all the data of all our patients which we vaccinate with Pfizer available to Pfizer, and then you know what? There will be riots because it's infringing on their personal liberties and things like that. But the Israel government just took this as just took this decision, and the Jews, being very pragmatic people, like, okay, that's a fair price to pay. So they did that. So I think in many ways we can learn about being far-sighted, being scientifically pragmatic, and being smart, how to outsmart the world. And you know, Israel has outsmarted the world. Just look at it. It's outsmarted the world. You know, it ordered its vaccines quite late, but it gave Pfizer a deal that Pfizer couldn't turn down.
Okay. Pastor, do you need a cup of drink? Are you okay?
No, I'm okay.
All right. Okay, it was reported that it's hard to pinpoint exactly how long immunity from the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine would last. So is it safe to take it?
Okay, put it this way. If you were infected with the COVID-19 sickness, you would still have antibodies at 6 months. Okay, so if we are actually, so what we need to do is to say, will this vaccine give you enough antibodies still at 6 months? 75% of people who have got COVID actually still have antibodies at 6 months, either high levels or moderate level or low levels, but they still have antibodies. So I think for Pfizer, we want to see that this is the case. And I think so far it seems to be working out along those lines, but we don't have enough data to say for sure that this is the case right now. Okay, but I think Pfizer will make it. I personally just have a gut feeling that they will make it. In other words, it is good enough for at least 6 months after that.
Thank you, Pastor. Are the vaccines effective for all ethnicity and races? Are there any studies done with regards to ethnic specificity to the efficacy of the vaccines?
We don't know. Answer to that is unknown right now. We have mixed all the races together. Nobody has actually looked at the subcategories of the races in the trials to see whether in fact there's a difference. And some of the categories are too small in number to actually make any conclusions. So the answer is no at the moment. We just don't have the time or the space or the luxury to look at this data in details.
Okay. Is the vaccine being rolled out specific to certain strains of the virus only? Will we need to be revaccinated regularly, maybe like yearly?
Good question. We don't know the answer to this question. My suggestion, my feel is that I think we may need something like that. It's like a flu jab, you know. In a flu jab, you know, you need a new flu jab every year or every couple of years, you know, because this flu virus mutates, right? So it may well be that that may be the case. If this virus mutates, which it looks as though it's a fairly fast mutating virus, then you know what? After 2 doses, you know, after the next year, you might need to get a new kind of renewed jab, not of the original vaccine, but a new vaccine to actually cover the new mutation, like the flu jab. I think that is very likely. So the 2 shots that we have is not the end of the world, in the sense that it's not the end of our vaccination. It's just to, what they call in Cantonese, 頂住先, you know, it's just to hold it so that we can open up the economy, but every one of us will continue to have to be revaccinated until the virus disappears from the scene, if it ever disappears from the scene.
Okay. All right, Pastor, we have seen reports on death and side effects from the vaccine. And side effects may show 2 years onwards. So do you still recommend that Malaysians get vaccinated?
Oh yes, without a shadow of doubt. We need to get vaccinated. If we don't get vaccinated and we don't get, the only way to get herd immunity that is acceptable in a country is to be vaccinated. The other way of getting herd immunity is just expose everybody to the virus, let those who are not so fit die, and eventually the price of herd immunity would probably be to lose maybe a million people, something like that. And then that would be herd immunity in Malaysia. That would not be acceptable. The only way to get herd immunity is to vaccinate. Okay, that is the price, that's the lowest price for us to pay as a population if we want our economy to open up. Yeah, if we want our schools, our education systems to open up, everything to open up, then that's the way to go. So my answer is yes. But obviously, always keep an eye on the big picture. Obviously, for those of us who are medical, it's easier to keep an eye on it. For those who are non-medical, probably you need, from time to time a talk like that just to give you a big picture of what's happening out there. But keep an eye on the scene. And so long as there is social media, there'll be a lot of fake news going out as well. So again, if you're not medical, then it can be very, very confusing. You remember the early fake news, about 5G, New World Order, all that kind of things? Now they have disappeared. Now, no, it's new types of fake news coming out. So we need to learn to distinguish these things. So often ask people whom you trust, who are in authority, who are technically knowledgeable. Don't ask the friends whom you trust when they're not technically knowledgeable, because it doesn't help. Yeah, ask people who actually have some inside knowledge or technical knowledge about this whole thing, medical knowledge.
Okay. All right. If elderly people around 80 years old with penicillin allergy, are they suitable to take the vaccine? What will be the side effects?
There's no evidence that penicillin allergy cross-reacts with COVID vaccine allergy. Okay, so these are very different allergies, and therefore they're probably safe to take. But again, just take the usual precautions that I mentioned. Okay, and if you're 80 years old, you want to take the vaccine, then there's no reason why not, unless you're very sickly 80-year-old. If you're really very sickly, you belong to the Norwegian type of 80-year-old, some of whom that died after the vaccine, then think again. But if you're just a healthy 80 years old and you want to go out and enjoy yourself, and then you need a vaccine. So yeah, you can take it, but take it with the precautions that I mentioned about people who are allergy prone.
Okay. Okay, Pastor, if there is, can we not wait for the program that is given to us by the government and then we go and opt for a commercial vaccination?
You see, I also don't know how this is going to work out, but I think that the private sector will have a part to play in this. So there will be, the government wants to give the vaccine free to everybody, is prepared to spend that kind of money. And so you may say, you know what, I don't want a free Russian vaccine. I want to go and get my own, my own Mrna of vaccine. So we can actually go and do that right now, okay? Yeah, I know you've got a good system in Penang, and I think you've got a government that's both caring and doing their best to try to get things under control. So yeah, I'm sure you can go out and eat your char kway teow again very soon.
Okay. Pastor, can we take different brands of vaccine? Let's say the first jab is from brand A and second jab is from brand B. Is it safe?
Well, I'm afraid not. Getting vaccines is not like shopping for handbags. You can't sort of buy Gucci here and the next one is a Versace handbag. You can't do that because we don't know whether no trials have been done that you can cross the vaccines. So the answer right now is that probably not. Yeah, I don't think it's lethal or anything like that, but probably not, because we don't know how effective this is. So not recommended, okay? But I would tell you, there will be people who will do that. It's a free world, so people will do that.
Okay, interesting. All right, Pastor, if the COVID-19 virus has been isolated, what is its RNA sequence?
Oh, I don't know the detail, but it's available in the public domain if you want to watch. You just Google it and then go into the public domain. And if you're interested, you can have all the nucleotide sequence of the RNA. Okay, it's no secret. Anybody can get it. Anybody can look at it. Okay, but I'm sorry I can't tell you the sequence, because it's probably got thousands and thousands of nucleotides.
All right. Okay, Pastor, can you recommend one reliable website for us to refer to when it comes to update on the vaccine development?
The answer is no. There is okay, put it this way, WHO gives you an update, but it's very, very dry information. It's very dry, and it's all data and figures. They give you standard replies to things that you already probably know, but they don't give you what we call cutting edge opinions about how things are panning out. For this, you have to actually listen to some of the experts who will talk about this. And so, if you're on YouTube and all that kind of things, choose the agencies carefully, whether it's the MHRA from the UK or whether it's the FDA in the United States or the European Health Regulatory Agencies or Singapore government or some government or regulatory health agency you trust, and then let the experts then talk. That will give you some idea. But other than that, if you say Google and try to navigate it yourself, it's a tall order if you don't know medical jargon. It's a tall order.
Okay. All right, Pastor, maybe the last question for tonight is this. Wouldn't the virus just keep mutating as its survival of the fittest strain, and it's going to stay for a while? Shouldn't they treat it like a normal flu?
Treating a normal flu. Okay, firstly, we can't treat a normal flu because the death rates of normal flu is not like the virus. The virus actually has got about 100 times or 1,000 times, I can't remember, but more than the death rate of the normal flu. So you know that it's not like that. Secondly, normal flu is sporadic. It's not in a way as transmissible as the COVID virus. The COVID virus is a real big bully. The problem with this virus is that you spread it before you get before you know you have the disease. That is the big problem. Within contacting the virus, 3 days after that, you're spreading the virus already, but you have no symptoms. And therefore you're spreading it for 3 or 4 days after that, and 5 days after that, before you get the symptoms, by which time you probably infected 100 over people already. And that is why this virus is such a bully, such a problem. SARS was not like that. SARS, you only start spreading the virus when you have the symptoms. So you see, we can isolate them very quickly. So the moment you get symptoms, we isolate them, we kill the virus. I mean, basically, the virus has no other reservoir to go to, it dies. But COVID is not like that. It is a big bully. It's a backdoor guy. It's a mafia. It spreads you out in the underworld before you actually know it's there. And that is why the only way to make it go away is to reduce and shrink the pool of the people it can infect. And the only way to do that, in a way that's ethically acceptable, is to vaccinate. So as you vaccinate more and more people, it shrinks the pool that they can infect. And when you shrink the pool they can infect, you can shrink the pool in which they have room to mutate. Okay, so you have less and less room and time for them to mutate, and eventually even the mutation doesn't happen. It goes. Yeah.
Okay. Pastor, we just got one very good question, I think, that came in. Since vaccines have to be within certain temperature, how can we be assured the vaccine we are getting was well stored and thus effective?
That is a $1 million question. See, there has to be a level of trust along the way. And really, this is the thing that concerns me. This concerns me a lot. Now, normal vaccines, for example, the vaccines I give to my patients and all the other doctors give to their patients, we trust the transport chain simply because 2 to 8 degrees, which is the normal temperature of the vaccines, is common to tens of hundreds of vaccines. It's not a problem. Whether it's your hepatitis B, hepatitis A, your polio vaccine, all these kind of vaccines are running at fridge temperature. So we have been doing this for decades. So the system is very well established. It's not a problem. But when you have a Moderna vaccine, which is minus 20 degrees, or a Pfizer vaccine, which is minus 70, question is good. I mean, that really needs to be thought through. How well preserved is the cold chain? And you have to go on a basis of trust. But I know that I don't answer the question when you say the basis of trust. In Malaysia, basis of trust, who are the regulatory authorities? Who enforce make sure that these things are enforced? Good question. And it's a very question. It's a $64,000 question, $1 million question. I don't have the answers until we find out whether some people who have been actually vaccinated Pfizer actually start getting COVID and severe COVID. Then we know probably they were given that vaccine.
Wow. Wow, Pastor Philip, thank you so much for tonight. I will pass this time even right now to Pastor Sam.
Yep, Pastor Philip, thank you so much. Wow, this is so good and really opens up our mind and allows us to, I think it has probably allowed us to make one good decision. I think one of your answer that you gave just now was so affirmative and so convincing when the question is, like, should we take the vaccine? I think a lot of people have this fear and, reservations, which I am not advocating that this has actually eliminated that fear, but I think it has brought us and caused us to inch much closer to having a certain amount of confidence that what you shared has actually contributed to that good step that I think we all should need to take, which is to, do the most ethical thing, which is, the vaccination is the best way to fight the disease as well as to create the herd immunity. So thank you so much. I think it has probably answered many, many good questions in our thoughts and minds. But also, I think it has also done one more thing, which has caused us to think further about how we as pastors are going to lead our church, lead our people. And probably it has also given us some kind of a handle how we should talk to our members now and how we should address some of the questions that they have. And of course, we will make this available, this recording available to others also. So thank you for your amazing insight, wisdom in guiding us this evening, Pastor Philip. Really, big hand to you, and thank you so much for blessing us tonight. Really, it is so great, so great. But as we close, to everyone, all the pastors, leaders that have joined us, the main purpose of this session is basically to help to give you a certain amount of confidence in your heart about this topic, and also to give you some handles how you can actually address some of this particular topic to your people. You may not have all the technical know-hows, but at least you can point them to the right way, and you can give them the right channels and tools and handles in order for them to dig further and develop further some of the answers that they have in their own mind. As we close tonight, there are also many times Pastor Philip honestly and sincerely said to us, well, I do not know. Well, we don't know because we don't have the technical know-hows, we don't have the data, we don't have the information. We are in an early stage of many of those questions that have been asked. But that tells us so much more that how each one of us probably will project the future. How will it look like? Like the South African variant mutation, that how it has possibly created more questions and uncertainties in our mind. Well, there will be many more. But so as we end, we know that we have confidence in science. We have, like through the years and through the centuries, science have overcome many, many diseases. We believe that God has given wisdom to scientists. And I believe and I have confidence that eventually science will have an answer out of all this. But for the meantime, while we navigate through all the uncertainties, like some of the questions that you asked, and as Pastor Philip has spelled out very clearly, there are not enough data, there's not enough, a projection of certain things in clarity. But let's end with this passage of scripture. I want to read for you from Psalm 31, verse 14, 15, and 16, and then we'll close in prayer. Psalm 31, verse 14, 15, and 16. But I'm trusting you, O Lord, saying, you are my God. My future is in your hands. Rescue me from those who hunt me down relentlessly. I think, like Pastor Philip said, this COVID is a mafia, it's a backdoor, bully, So it's like somebody who's hunting me down relentlessly. Verse 16, and we end here. Let your favor shine on your servant. In your unfailing love, rescue me. So I end with that passage of scripture. For the last 1 year, we are coming to the 18th of March soon, probably in about a month's time, where the MCO first started. We have been almost a year in this pandemic mode. Many things have affected us, but still we don't have many answers. But my prayer is that many of the things that Pastor Philip gave has given you confidence, has given you assurance, and has given you a sense of hope. Hey, you know what? These are good things. And whatever that is happening around the world with the vaccination, it is definitely taking us somewhere that will allow us to fight this disease better. All right. So once again, Pastor Philip, thank you so very much. We want to pray now, and then we will end the session. All right. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you that in a time like this, that you sit enthroned over the heavens. And Lord, we thank you that your absolute governance of this world, Lord, is unprecedented and is full of wisdom and full of knowledge. And we thank you, Lord, that you are watching over each one of us. As much as we know that the greatest minds in the world do not have all the answers, but what confidence we have, what assurance for us to know that our future is in your hand. As the psalmist boldly proclaimed, Lord, let your favor rest upon us and let our future, Lord, be fully rested in your hands. It is with that confidence, Lord, we end this tonight's session. And with that confidence, we know that nothing shakes your throne, your wisdom, your leadership, your governance, and above all, your love for us. Because the Bible says nothing can separate us from your love, and that we are more than conquerors through Christ who loved us. So we end with this assurance of your love, that Lord, the world may be running aimlessly, hopelessly, but Lord, we come to you that the same hope and that same love will be found in them also, for them also. Thank you for Pastor Philip. Bless him and continue to use him, Lord, that you will make his ministry, his life, and Lord, the kind of a deposit that you have poured into his life, Lord, will be a blessing to many more. Thank you, Father, and bless all the leaders, pastors, and members who are listening. May the blessing and the peace of Jesus be with you. Now, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance and give you peace. Amen. Amen. God bless you, everybody. Pastor Philip, thank you. And we see you all again. See you in Penang, Pastor, soon. All right. God bless you all. Thank you. Blessing everyone. Thanks, Pastor Philip. Thanks, Pastor. Well done. Thank you. Thank you. We'll keep the char kway teow waiting for you. And the durian from Susie. Oh, hi.
Oh,
So Nancy.